Hey there, it's Gary Parrish. Welcome back to the CBS Sports Eye on College Basketball podcast, where we sometimes discuss camel fighting, dodo birds, leaky black. Matt Norlander is here with me. If you're watching on YouTube, you know what to do to the like button. Shouts to Brandon Davies. And if you haven't yet subscribed to the CBS Sports College Basketball YouTube channel, please also do that while you're here. Let's get into it. If you listened to Wednesday morning's Eye on College Basketball podcast, you know that we knew we were in for a busy Wednesday night filled with one compelling matchup after another. We thought it was going to be fun, but what we didn't know is that both number one and number two in the AP poll would both take losses, but that is what happened. Final score, Creighton 76, number one Kansas 63. Final score, number 9 Duke 84, number 2 Auburn 78. Norlander, I know you were at Gampel Pavilion last night watching UConn's win over Baylor. We're going to get to that. But first, your thoughts on number one and number two both losing last night.
I know you did an HQ hit. I'm going to lean a lot of the Kansas stuff on you because I saw very little of it. Now, I went to Gampel, watched UConn's win, post-game press conferences. I actually scooted out of there right away. It began to snow last night in Connecticut. I'm well over an hour from stores. Actually, as I talk to you right now, my kiddos are outside. You know what? God bless childhood. They're playing in the snow right now. Delayed opening. So that's been fun. But anyway, the point is I tried to get home as soon as possible. And God bless technology. I brought up YouTube TV on my phone and I listened to the call of Auburn Duke for basically most of it. And then I was home with about 6 and change to go in that game. So I actually have decent bearings on that game. And damn, Isaiah Evans, let's just start there and then we can talk Kansas, but obviously a very noisy night. And, you know, the SEC being incapable of outright sweeping the ACC, but coming damn close. Obviously this game was in that as well. Isaiah Evans being the first half hero. I believe it was 6 3-pointers through the first 20 minutes, which was huge. And then they really got it done across the board in the second half. As Auburn, you know, it was a tough ask to go in there and get a win against Duke. We both picked Duke to win. It winds up winning by 6 there. And I know Broome came on strong in the second half, was a little bit bumpy to start off the game there. But you had Flag with 22 and 11 boards and 4 assists and 2 blocks and 3 steals, which just feels like that is his quintessential stat line there. Tyrese Proctor hit a big time 3 in the second half, which I thought came at a really crucial moment. And in fact, I believe they had Sion James start last night instead of Caleb Foster, since you had some lineup tinkering there. Evans played well. Number one defense came out on top here, although both teams scored at a good clip. Duke was at 1.33 points and Auburn was at 1.24 points overall. Listen, Tigers have won 7 of 8. They played a really hard schedule. They're still fine. But for Duke, I thought this was a pretty big win. I'm not going to go as far as to call it crucial, but if you really wanted to go there, you could have a case, because Duke has to play at Louisville in league play coming up this weekend. But in terms of non-conference stuff, there's nothing else on the schedule. So they lose to Kentucky and they lose to Kansas, but they win at Arizona and they beat Auburn. The ACC could legitimately struggle to get more than 5 teams into the tournament, meaning that Duke's resume building opportunities in the conference will not be as abundant as it would like to be. And so in that scope, getting a home win, which will be a quad 1 win over Auburn, I thought was pretty significant there. Good on Shire and his guys. For Bruce Pearl, you know, you win in Maui, you come back, you play Duke close, you can't quite pull it off. You're going to take that deal every time. The Tigers still Tigers are not done, by the way. They still have Ohio State coming up next weekend, not this upcoming weekend, and they still play Purdue in non-conference play. So even more resume opportunities coming from Auburn. What did you see from the game? What are your thoughts?
First, trivia time.
Give it to me.
It's a trivia time.
Okay.
When's the last time number 1 and number 2 in the AP poll both lost on the same day?
That was January 9th of 2024.
Son of a mother, son. You're a son of a mother, son.
I know. It was notable. How about trivia time?
Okay, come on, let's go.
You weren't ready for this one, buddy. Maybe you were. When's the last time before New Year's Day?
UMass Lowell.
The number 1 and number 2 team lost on the same day.
When was the last time? What?
The last time the top 2 teams in the country lost in a given season before New Year's Day of that season.
Oh, man, that was probably last year, too.
It was not.
Should have been.
Famous ending. It's been more than a decade.
Oh, Anthony Davis blocking the corner.
Anthony Davis blocking the corner. Who were they playing?
Quick, Carolina.
No.
You don't remember that game? That's the year they won the national championship?
Yeah, that's not it.
Damn.
It's that season, though.
Well, that's the only thing I remember.
Ohio State went to Kansas and lost 78-67. And Christian Watford hit the shot to beat Kentucky.
Oh, I do remember that.
That is December 10th, 2011 was the last time in the same day before New Year's the top 2 teams lost as number 1 and number 2. Big development in the sport here. Thoughts on Auburn, Duke, and or Kansas Creighton, which was obviously hello. I mean, that spread obviously surprised the entire sport. No one thought Creighton was winning to that level, and I don't want to say with that amount of ease because they obviously had to execute at a high level and get it done. But man, oh man, that was to me the most surprising result of the night.
First off, shouts to Hakeem Dermish. He's the one who told me the January 9th, 2024 thing on CBS Sports HQ last night. If you're curious, it was number 1 Purdue losing at Nebraska by 16. You can't just walk into Pinnacle Bank, not in January. And number 2 Houston on that same day lost at Iowa State by 4 Hilton Magic. So that was that. As for last night, Kansas just didn't show up. They shot poorly from the field, poorly from 3, or average from 3, poorly from the free throw line. Hunter Dickinson got 2 fouls in the first half, went to the bench. Wasn't good before he went to the bench. Wasn't good after he got off of the bench. It was just an all-around poor performance that if you were somebody who had been, tweeting me in recent weeks saying, you really think that's the best team in the country? Last night was a good night for you because there was not a single point in that game. Not minute 1, not minute 40, where they looked anything close to the best team in the country.
Man, and you know what the ironic part about this is? So last year, it's kind of a careful what you wish for situation. Last year, UConn went to Kansas as part of the Big East Big 12 battle. And I think, although I wish it wasn't the case, I believe this is the last year of that, which is unfortunate, but that's a whole other topic altogether. Anyway, UConn went to Kansas last year. Kansas got the win. And then the idea was that Kansas would do the return trip to UConn this season, but that didn't happen. And I know Kansas was seeking a different game, specifically because Kansas has to play at Missouri this upcoming weekend there, and perhaps to cut down on distance of travel. For whatever reason, Kansas was not looking to have that game be returned, so Baylor got slotted in instead. Meantime, Kansas gets Creighton, which even going into the season before Creighton had slumped, you would have thought, okay, well, it's still a tough game. Lo and behold, they wind up taking the loss anyway in advance of playing Missouri. 7-1 overall. Nada, flip on your mic real quick here. What is our poll question for today's podcast, out of curiosity?
Poll question is, who should still be the number 1 team as after number 1 and 2 lost?
Mm-hmm.
Auburn is still leading this poll with 53%.
What are the options here? Auburn and who else?
Auburn, Tennessee, Kansas, and Gonzaga.
Auburn, Tennessee, Kansas, and Gonzaga. GP, who is number 1 for you on this Thursday morning, December 5th?
Okay. After staying up till 2 o'clock in the morning, thinking through it from every angle,
you've decided it's got to be Kansas.
It's just, it's Bill Self and DeJuan Harris. What do you want me to do? What do you want me to do?
Hold on, I'm joking. It's okay. I was about to say, there's no way.
No. Let me just talk you through it because this is the way I had to talk myself through it. So you start at number 1, Kansas. Okay, they were your preseason number 1. They had a nice body of work, even if it wasn't the best body of work heading into last night's game. But they had a 0 in the loss column, and I think you can reasonably, if you think somebody was going to be the best team in the sport since April 19th, when they got a 0 in the loss column on December 4th, you can keep them there. And so that's what I did. But when you lose at Creighton, a Creighton team that already has 3 losses that had not been very good, when you lose at Creighton, you can't stay at number 1. So they can't be there. You go to the team that was number 2 on Wednesday morning. That's Auburn.
Yeah.
I agree with the poll. You could still make a case that if you just forget when the games were played, forget what happened yesterday, just it's December 5th. Let's look at what everybody's done this year. You could make a case that Auburn should go to number 1. But I've been doing this long enough to know that if you ever take a team that was number 2, watch them get beat, and then the next morning move them to number 1, that just ain't going to play well for your mentions. They don't understand
your heart. Don't worry about your mentions.
They don't understand that on Twitter. They don't even understand that over at Blue Sky.
I think they might actually. They're pretty.
You know what? They probably would over Blue Sky.
I think they would, to be honest.
Over at Twitter, I would get called a pedophile, and on Blue Sky, they'd be like, "GP, I understand. Good job."
He's a big brain thinker over there. Yeah.
At Twitter, they would say, "You should go to jail forever," and on Blue Sky, they'd be like, GP, man, I hope you're doing okay. Right?
I might slightly disagree with this ranking, but you know what? I appreciate what you do, and I'm going to continue to follow your work.
That's right. So perhaps I should just move Auburn to number 1. But I didn't. I did keep Auburn at number 2, though. I kept Auburn right at number 2, even after the loss at Duke. You go to number 3 on Wednesday morning in the top 25 and 1. That was Iowa State. And they got a big win over Marquette.
Yep, we're getting there, Iowa State.
Yeah, we're getting there. Hilton Magic, man. You know I believe in it. You know how much I trust buildings. And last night, by the way, was a great night to trust buildings.
Yeah.
Wonderful night to trust buildings.
Kind of hard to win on the road in college basketball, no doubt.
Okay, the problem is you wake up on December 5th, in regards to what happened yesterday, Iowa State's a 1-loss team. Auburn's a 1-loss team.
Yeah.
Auburn's got better wins than Iowa State and a neutral court win over Iowa State. I can't wrap my head around getting Iowa State above Auburn.
Yep.
So I kept Iowa State right where they were. After that, you've got Marquette. Well, like Marquette just lost at Iowa State. You're not moving them to number 1. You can't jump from 4 to 1 after losing at Iowa State. They won't tolerate that. They won't tolerate
lost and they won't to the theater.
They won't tolerate that over at Twitter. So you can't do that. And then it takes you to number 5 Tennessee, which is 8-0 with 8 victories by at least 15 points. They are blowing out everybody. And if you were looking for the team in the country right now that has a 0 in the loss column, quality wins, strong computer numbers, Tennessee is the best option. Tennessee, as of Thursday morning, has moved to number 1 in the top 25 and 1.
SEC teams, I'm not going to say sitting idle. They just played 2 days ago. But, yeah, moving up while losses around them. See if that affects the CFP bracket here 3 days from now, by the way, and that's a joy to watch from.
The college football playoff committee, they don't care about what happens in the games. they just as long as they got Alabama and 11 other teams, they're cool. They don't care about anything else.
It's too good. Congrats to Creighton on getting a win. The Big East in general, man, took advantage, needed to do it. Creighton taking care of business at home. I thought that was crucial. You go back to what happened 2 nights ago, Nova and Providence winning. We'll get to UConn. UConn gets it done against Baylor with both teams shorthanded, but the Creighton win, man, that was a big time victory there. And yeah, this was the running theme across Wednesday night, though. I mean, same old song and dance. It's really hard to win on the road in college basketball, maybe particularly in non-conference play for high major to high major. Auburn goes into Duke, can't get it done. Baylor goes into UConn, can't get it done. Kansas goes into Creighton, can't get it done. Wasn't that Marquette goes into Iowa State, can't get it done. Wasn't that way across the board. We'll get to some more results. But for the most part, yeah, I mean, Ohio State got absolutely mutilated at Maryland. And we've got some good mix-ups there at the top of the poll. Tennessee, there's a case for it. The only team not in the poll that obviously I think has a decent case is Iowa State. But Iowa State, GP just ran through it there. What I do not want to hear, and I haven't heard it yet, I haven't seen a tweet about it, I haven't heard a podcast segment about it, I haven't seen it discussed on television with the Chiron underneath it. I don't want to hear there's no great teams, okay? We could have a lot of great teams. Right now, you've got, let's see how many undefeateds are left. Right now, your undefeated teams are Tennessee, Florida won last night. Oregon won last night. Oklahoma, Utah State, UC Irvine. Anteaters, stand up. Loyola Chicago, Drake, and Rhode Island. So we're at 9 unbeatens left and a slew. I mean, there's got to be, I'm looking right now, GP, there's more than 35 one-loss teams in the sport right now. So good Wednesday night, big Wednesday night, headlined obviously by the top 2 teams going down on the road.
Isn't it interesting? Drake, on one hand, having the worst year you could imagine. Drake, on the other hand, off to a pretty good start.
Well, one's a rapper from Toronto, and the other's a university based in Des Moines, Iowa. So
one of them is a master manipulator, habitual liar.
Okay. Yeah.
And a colonizer. And the other one's off to a pretty good start this basketball season. Greg McDermott, saw this last night.
Okay.
Is the 4th coach ever to beat the number 1 team in the AP poll by double digits in back-to-back years.
Oh, that's a good stat. Don't ask me the other ones. I'm not going to get it.
It's Bill Henderson.
See, yeah, it is.
I don't know if it is. I just make it things up. I don't know who it is. I by the time I stumbled into that, I thought it was time to go to bed. But shouts to Greg McDermott, big win. And
big win, man.
In all seriousness, like they needed that just to for the It wasn't as high profile as UConn struggles because UConn's the back-to-back champs and Creighton isn't. But in the Big East, you had 2 preseason top 25 teams, one of which was the reigning back-to-back champ, and they like really got off to rough starts. And so Creighton needed something just to calm everybody down. They get that last night, wire to wire, and we joke about it all the time, but last night really was a great example of just trust the buildings. If you have quality programs, forget the team. I mean, don't ever forget the team.
Again, you're just taking all the credit away from the human beings involved in making this happen. Just saying, just trust the building. It was the building that did it.
Okay.
What's this called? The Omaha Shy Center? What's the Creighton building?
I think it's confusing because it's a CHI.
No, we don't have another arena inside a forum behind a field house.
No. But it is confusing because it's CHI. And you look at that and you go, well, that's short for Chicago. That's shy. But then you go, you don't think CHI is short for Chicago?
Of course I do. Of course. Shy Health Center Omaha. That's what it is. I just looked it up.
Except no, I think it's CHI. I think you have to say
you know what?
CHI.
They can all take a walk. It's shy as far as
I don't think you're allowed to say that. I don't think you're going to get canceled. You're going to get canceled for saying that.
Oh yeah.
Delete this. You're going to get canceled. Yeah, I mean, we've seen people. You remember that one fella? He got hired at Saturday Night Live, and then they found him on a podcast, and they were like, "Well, you can't say that," and they fired him immediately.
I don't remember who that was, but anyway,
Ben Gillis, I believe. But you are next. You're next. It's over.
We're calling it the Shy Health Center, Omaha.
Yes, it's you can't do that.
We're both on way too little sleep.
You can't do that. You can't do.
I did, and I'll do it again.
Are you trying to lose every time you
have?
Are you
cheating on Pinnacle Bank in the same damn state? That's what I'm about to ask.
No.
I think you might be, actually.
I just told you it was
your allegiances have wavered. I think you have a wandering eye. Yeah. At the Shy Health Center Omaha.
That was the old me. That was the younger me. My eyes are focused now. Okay. My eyes are focused. And I just told you on January 9th, 2024, a top 2 team went into Pinnacle Bank and got slapped around. I just told you that.
What was the team, by the way?
It was Purdue.
On January 9th?
I think it was Purdue.
No, it was not.
Yes, it was. It was Purdue. They lost at Nebraska by 16.
Oh, I thought you were talking about Creighton.
You brought up Pinnacle Bank.
Oh gosh. I thought you were talking about UConn lost at Creighton. Creighton has now won 2 straight games against number 1 teams in back-to-back seasons.
I know, but you were trying to make me choose between the CHI Center, whatever that's called.
Brian Borkenhagen, can't believe I got that out cleanly on the first try, is accurately pointing out we should just be calling this the Shy McBride Center. Great actor, Shy McBride. Why not?
I don't know. Hey.
I think that's the move. I love it.
All right. I feel like we're done with this part.
We are so done.
I think we're done with this part of the show.
Just roll the partners in the middle of our sentences. I don't.
Yeah, just go ahead. Run it right now. Just do that. Let's start over. I do trust that building, though. And last night was a great reminder of why you can trust buildings. Forget the teams to some extent, just great programs with great buildings. You can trust them. You can trust them. And that's what I did last night. And if you did that last night, you were good nearly across the board. Norlander, busy night last night.
Yeah.
Lots to get to. Let's hey, just to stay on topic, trust in buildings. You were inside Gampel last night.
I was.
Number 25, UConn. I don't know why UConn's still number 25, but whatever. I don't care. All right. They're number 25 in the AP poll. UConn 76, number 15, Baylor 72. UConn was without Alex Carabin. Mm-hmm. Baylor was without VJ Edgecombe, and eventually also without Jeremy Roach, who went into concussion protocol in the second half. Mm-hmm. Is this a turning point for the Huskies, or just a win at home over a Baylor team that's been a little uneven and that finished the game down 2 starters?
You know, we'll soon see. I have a column up right now at cbssports.com or on your CBS Sports app about that very thing. Let's touch on Baylor real quick, and then we'll focus in on the Huskies here. So VJ Edgecombe not playing came as a surprise. He was limited a little bit in the previous game, and then I talked to Scott Drew after. And essentially, in going through shoot around, Edgecombe's hamstring was just too much of an issue. They didn't want to chance it. They thought he was going to play. And in fact, Scott said, going into shoot around, they were pretty much expecting him to play. And then it just did not happen. He's going to get an MRI today, apparently. So not having Edgecombe, you go into that game, UConn doesn't have its most valuable player. Baylor doesn't have, Edgecombe hasn't been their best player, but he's, projected lottery pick, obviously a key factor there. He wasn't available. And then, yes, Roach winds up suffering, a concussion or potentially a concussion. He was in the protocol, and then they didn't have him down the stretch. And I thought that was pretty key there. Baylor now is a 5-3 team, lost at Gonzaga, lost to Tennessee almost 2 weeks ago, and now took the loss at UConn. Meantime, it has a neutral court win over Arkansas, a neutral over St. John's. And, it's going to probably take some time for Baylor to potentially meet its potential. Drew said last night the team has fewer than 5 practices. This is dating back to when practice officially started in the preseason, has fewer than 5 practices as a full team. It's obviously driving them nuts to a certain extent because you need good health to give yourself the best chance to win. And Baylor simply does not have that right now. Tell you what, though, man, Robert Wright III, he's a good player. He's a young player, but he's stepped up in a lot of ways there. I still like the pieces a lot, but let's get to UConn. Hurley comes into the postgame press conference, and his first words were, thank you, Gampel. Thank you, Gampel. Thank you, students. Thank you, Gampel. Parrish pops into my head because he's thanking the building. I know it didn't. It's the building, but it was way more than just the building. UConn has maybe the toughest December of any team in the country. Here's what they have. They just had Baylor at home. They go to Texas on Sunday. They get Gonzaga at the Garden next week. They've got home against a 1-loss Xavier, and then they are at 1-loss Butler before playing at 1-loss DePaul, but that's technically on New Year's Day. So it's a very challenging December, and we're going to know a lot about UConn before we get to Christmas. This was a humongous game. Hurley said he didn't think there had been a game with more consequence in the regular season to him, with a team that was capable of doing really good things than what this one was last night. Liam McNeely goes for 17, and he finally got them on the, UConn got off to a slow start. McNeely got a 3-point play to finally get him rolling. Aiden Mahaney had 9 points on 3 threes, including a pair of threes in the first half that got UConn to, I think, within 3 points, and then Baylor called timeout. Hurley and Mahaney had a meeting, of celebration going into that time. In fact, Nada, you have this. Here's a quick thing from Hurley. As he explains this, he starts flapping his arms as if he's a bird. Nada, just play this, and then I'll.
Headbutted him, then he punched me in the chest hard. That's why I'm talking so low. I think I might have cracked a rib. He rose like a phoenix out of the ashes today. That's why Not sure if you saw that on the sideline today. He was, and I'm not sure that's what a Phoenix does.
Just unbelievable. I love the way he rose like a phoenix out of the ashes. That might have to go on the soundboard. Just ridiculous.
Every time somebody has a breakout game, they have risen like a phoenix.
Called to mind Frank Costanza. I'm rising like a phoenix from Arizona. But they needed it. And
bad. It was great.
GP, there was one quote after another from Hurley that, to me, having seen the team in Maui and see what didn't happen, just indicated a lot of positive development in the right direction for UConn. It was Hurley, talking glowingly about Samson Johnson, who was plus 18 as an individual. I don't really like single person plus minus, but undeniably, when he was on the floor, UConn was a better team, and he had a really, really strong performance there. Terrace Reed had good moments. Mahaney needed to get himself some confidence there, and the three-pointers came up huge for him. I thought it was a good sign that UConn won, even though it's still working on, fixing its defense here. Baylor did shoot 49% from the field. It was, only 6 of 17 from 3-point range, but was still well over 1 point per possession in this game. But they got a little bit from everyone. There was a moment when Jalen Stewart had a big play. Hassan Diarra had 7 assists. As a team, UConn only had 7 turnovers. So a nice win to start. They got to turn around. They got to play at Texas. And then I'll close with what was I've buried the lead here, and that is Hurley admitting that a lot of this was on him in terms of the problems with the slow start and what UConn had been. I'm going to read directly a couple quotes he gave. He said, quote, "I think part of the problem has been me. I've coached these guys frustrated, and I've coached them frustrated for too long. This is a team that's going to be a work in progress and a team that's going to get better and better. And we're relying on a lot of young players and new players," end quote. He also said, quote, "For us, I had to coach this team with more grace and more building them up and more enthusiasm and more energy. I can't coach them mad because we're not currently playing as well as the last 2 teams have played. And I think, like I said yesterday, there's been some people that have helped me kind of check whether it is my ego or just my approach with this team. I think that's a really good development. Coaches will tell you different groups you sometimes coach different players entirely differently, but different groups can, need different kinds of guidance at different points of the season. Obviously, they were able to tap in and get a much needed home victory over Baylor. Don't know if it's going to be the pivot point for their season, but if this team can be as good as Hurley believes that it can be, then this kind of game can have a really positive effect, and we'll see if they can get through December with, say, only 1 loss against what's obviously going to be a challenging schedule.
Just first on Baylor in the game. Once they lost Jeremy Roach, they just looked out of sorts. They just looked like they didn't know how to do what they needed to do. It was interesting that they hung around and they were in it like basically the entire time. But man, once Roach came out of the game and it was clear he wasn't coming back, it combined that with everything they were dealing with. It felt like a tough task, and it obviously was. With Edgecombe, I'm not suggesting anything weird or trying to make a big deal out of it, but that's a lottery. You mentioned it. That's a lottery pick injury.
Okay, I mean, you just don't want to mess with even
No, he's
Scott's in first place. Hamstring and groins.
Yeah,
hamstrings and groins.
No.
GP
Soft tissue issues.
Yeah. If you're new to the pod, GP can't say the word groin. You don't want to mess with those because they can worsen. He's right, but you're correct. They're not gonna chance that whatsoever.
Yeah, no. And to be clear, he's worth more money than both of us. Okay.
I'm well aware. It probably has been since he was 9. So.
Yeah, it probably has been since his first AAU team. Yeah. All right. So I understand it, but that's what that is. When you hear a coach say, "We thought he was playing right up until tip-off," that's a lottery pick injury. On UConn, they needed it, I think, more than anybody else last night. I don't think anybody else in the country needed a win in their building last night.
Probably, but Creighton is a really close second if that's the case.
Yeah, but if Creighton loses, with all due respect to Creighton, they're not spending a block on
I got
get up this morning. Stephen A. Smith ain't ranting.
That's why I was at the game. It meant that much.
Right.
On a huge night. Had UConn lost, big story here, but they get the win. Continue.
That's right. So they needed it. The crowd showed up. It's hard to tell sometimes what it's like on TV. How was it in the building?
You know what? The crowd was good. I've definitely been around better crowds. It was pretty filled up. A little bit of a slightly late arriving crowd. That's due to the 6:30 tip. Right. And again, there was snow in the area last night, but they showed up well, and building got going pretty well there. But I've been in better.
Yeah. So I think if I remember correctly, UConn fell behind early.
Yeah.
Right.
They were down like 9. They were down. I think they were down 9-0 or something close to
like
that.
Right.
7-0, and then. It was I got it in my store here, GP. I think it was 19-8. It was 19-8 with 12:16 to go in the first half, and you're kind of looking around like, are they gonna fail to even like make this a game or get into it? And then that's when Aiden Mahaney showed up and Hurley said they needed that big time.
Right. And keep in mind, like I've already noted, Roach went out, Edgecombe was never there. Like UConn was missing its best player. So you really need a win, and your best player is not in the uniform. That's tough. And then Mahaney knocked down a couple of shots, and I thought that was great, just awesome. Mm-hmm. I regardless of what the perception of me might be, and I'm not sure exactly, but I don't like watching people struggle. I don't root against people. Like I like watching people succeed. I like watching people flourish, and I don't think it's awesome that Aiden Mahaney goes from a good college basketball player at St. Mary's, gets lifted up to this amazing stage that UConn provides, and then it's just he couldn't play. I mean, he went from starting and playing real minutes to not starting and playing almost no minutes. I mean, we went 2 straight games in Maui without scoring, and for him to be a meaningful part of an important victory and then have that moment on the sideline with Dan, which was A, hilarious, but B, also just awesome.
Yeah.
That's what you, and at the risk of talking about Dan Hurley's sideline behavior, I don't want to get into that, but like that was awesome. That was an incredible moment. That's what you want to see between coach and player. And I read your column and I saw the post-game quotes and Dan recognizing you have to talk to different people different ways and deal with different people different ways. And I might have to deal with this team differently than I've dealt with other teams. I wasn't in the building, but I had my eyes on the television. He seemed from the jump very encouraging and like lifting up, as opposed. He didn't seem as mad as he seemed intense, and like it seemed like an intentional different approach. And I thought it served everybody well. And that was a nice moment in that building last night. And I'm like you, I don't know exactly what it means, if it's a turning point.
Yeah.
But my God, a loss would have been not devastating, but way less than ideal. And so the alternative to that was a good evening.
It would have been as close to devastating as you could get. A home game. They didn't have Caravan, but a Baylor team without arguably its 2 most important players. They needed to get that win, and the moment with Mahaney and Hurley was great. It was just, it was a spontaneous display of really positive energy and emotion. And I hope Hurley's rib isn't cracked, but that quote, he rose like a phoenix. There's a little bit of Christopher Walken in there that started to creep in, I think. Actually, do you have it? Can you play that? I need to hear that one more time. Can you play that one more time?
And then he punched me in the chest hard. That's why I'm talking so low. I think I might have cracked a rib. He rose like a phoenix out of the ashes today. That's why I'm not sure if you saw that on the sideline today. He was, and I'm not sure that's what a phoenix does. But
yeah, that's there's some Christopher.
Oh no! If you took Christopher Walken, set him across from Bruce Willis, and told him to say he rose like a phoenix, it would fit right in perfectly.
So good, man. Let's keep the tour going here. For all I know, I'm on the hook to bring these kids to their delayed opening. Iowa State. All right, Cyclones fans, we're here for you. Beats Marquette 81-70. This game was on ESPN Plus. I did watch. I did get some viewing in here, so I'm going to give some results and then let's just bounce around. Iowa State wins at home over Marquette. Alabama goes and beats North Carolina. Oh, by the way, North Carolina 94-79. Pitt had been playing well. It gets absolutely rocked down at Mississippi State. Good win for Chris Janz's program. Maryland Diebler's Ohio State 83-59. I think the halftime score might have been 59-7. Just insane what the hell was going on in College Park. Oregon remains undefeated. They win 68-60 over USC. Florida remains undefeated. They have no issues with Virginia 87-69. I think that's the majority of the relevant results here. Let's take it where you want to take it. I had eyes a little bit on Iowa State here and there. I had eyes a little bit on Bama, UNC sitting there in the press area at UConn there. Not as much the other ones. You lead it off. Where do you want to go?
Yeah, well, let's start with Iowa State. Another situation where the building played a role. Yeah, the players did too. But like that's a you take Iowa State Marquette, put them at Fiserv Forum, which you can't trust the way you trust.
We've gone over this. I know.
Sometimes they think they're Bucks. Sometimes they're like, come on, Bucks, come cuddle with me, Bucks. And then other times they're like, come on, Golden Eagles, come cuddle with me, Golden Eagles. You can't trust them. Two-timing. Fiserv Forum is a two-timer. Hilton, not so much. You can trust that building. And Iowa State really pulled away in the second half, and the last few minutes of it weren't even that interesting. The Cyclones.
But didn't Marquette made a big push and they were able to tie it up, and there was an opening there that they couldn't quite close on.
Yeah, but then they pulled away, and it ends up being a double-digit win. We wondered yesterday on the pod, I asked you.
We didn't.
We might not have wondered, but I asked you. Who are we sure who Iowa State's best player is? It looks like it's Keyshawn Gilbert. He had 24.
I said Keyshawn Gilbert would be my pick.
He had 24.7 assists last night. Meantime, Marquette's top two scorers, my little homie from Memphis, Cam Jones, plus David Joplin, they combined to go 9 of 33 from the field, 3 of 11 from three. So Marquette didn't get great stuff or even good stuff from the top of its roster. Gilbert was really, really good. And like I told you, I don't know how I can, if you just take a fresh look at it this morning, move Iowa State ahead of an Auburn team that they both have one loss Auburn's loss is at Duke, so it's not even and Auburn has a win over Iowa State. I just can't make sense of getting Iowa State above Auburn, but I've got them right behind Auburn. And right now the top 25 is number 1 Tennessee, number 2 Auburn, and number 3 Iowa State. They're great. They're I know you were skeptical the entire offseason, but they seem to be just as great as I tried to tell you they'd be.
Number 6 offense, adjusted efficiency at Ken Palm right now. This was the first win over a top 30 team for Iowa State so far this season, and is their only scheduled game against a top 30 team, against a team of that caliber until they play against Baylor on January 4th. So I thought it was, while I expected Iowa State to win, I think the victory winds up carrying a lot more cachet and maybe importance than maybe even some folks realize there. Marquette, there's no shame in it. It's actually like what Scott Drew said after losing at UConn. You like these games because if you lose them, it doesn't really hurt you. Now in aggregate, you pile up losses that'll hurt you. But if you look at it in a vacuum, it doesn't really hurt you. Marquette's not going to be hurt by the fact that it went into Iowa State and didn't get out the win. But for ISU, they get what's almost definitely going to be a quad one win once we get to Selection Sunday, and that means a lot, and that's a good win for the Cyclones, who are in the conversation to be one of the best teams, if not the best team in the sport. Good stuff out of TJ Otzelberger. That offense, man, 81, getting to 81 and holding Marquette to 70. That's a really, really good job by them. We got to focus in a little bit here on Bama UNC. Bama is now 7-2. Again, losses at Purdue and got beat at Players Era by Oregon, lost by 2 there, but now has a win over Illinois, has a win on a neutral over Houston. We'll see if the Rutgers win winds up meaning anything or not. We just don't know at this point. And then Howe has won at North Carolina. Still has Creighton coming up next this weekend. We'll get to that in short work here. But to me, it was obviously a really impressive win for Bama because you got Sears went for 20. LeBaron Philon had another good game as a freshman there, and they really distributed all around. Thought Aiden Holloway played well. So credit to the Crimson Tide. They were my preseason number 1 team. And if you're a Bama fan, I think you need to take 7-2 with the schedule that you had. I think you take that. UNC is 4-4, and the Tar Heels they were down 21 to Dayton and Maui, rallied and won that game. Had they not done that, now they did it. Had they not, this would be the 5-alarm fire in college hoops right now, because that would mean UNC would be a 3-5 team instead of a 4-4 team. But it is a 4-4 team with wins over Elon, American, Hawaii, and Dayton.
Yeah.
Losses close, but a loss at Kansas. A loss by 13 to Auburn out in Lahaina. Came back but couldn't pull it off. Lost in overtime to Michigan State, and now here, I mean, it was Alabama was in 5th gear and UNC was in 3rd gear all night here. They still have non-con opportunities against Florida and UCLA. There's still time, yes, but man, is this going to be a little bit of is it going to be GP an up and down situation for Hubert Davis? By that I mean year 1.
Yeah, no, right.
Gets their bearings, 8 seed, title game, 15-point halftime lead on Kansas. Don't win the title, but whatever. You do the Duke stuff, good. Year 2, preseason number 1, don't even make the tournament. Last season, 29-win team, number 1 seed, make the second weekend. Overall, you'd have liked to go to the Final Four. We had a good year. Will year 4 be a trend back down? I don't know, but right now they're 4-4, and the front court issues are still lingering heavy.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. But a month into the season, it feels like it's headed that way. If I'm going to pat myself on the back for trying to preach to you that Iowa State was going to be good all offseason, let me hold my hand up and acknowledge that the North Carolina fans who consistently told me I had overrated their own team.
Yeah.
I should have listened to you maybe.
Yeah.
I've still got North Carolina ranked because I can justify it. I have Dayton in there, and the teams that they've lost to are all ahead of them. Kansas, Auburn, Michigan State, Alabama. Then they've got a win over a Dayton team. So I think I've got Dayton at number 23 in the top 25 and 1, and North Carolina at number 22. But I mean,
I don't know.
I'm not sure.
I think you were up too late thinking about the top 5 of your.
I hear you. If you want to say there's no way you would have them in there, I hear you.
I mean,
I can rationalize it. I just did. Their 4 losses are to teams that are ranked ahead of them, and they do have a win over a Dayton team that I also have in the top 25 and 1. I can rationalize it. But if you're asking me, do I really believe it? I don't know if I really believe it.
Okay, so now you're just writing things and putting things down that you might not.
No, I mean, I can. What I'm trying to say is that I am open-minded more than ever to the idea that they might not be as good as I thought.
You're getting there. Just one more loss.
Just give me one more loss.
Give me one more loss.
Drop to 4-5, and
I'll believe you suck.
And I'll believe you suck. Drop to 4-5, and I'll go, okay, they stink.
Well, we'll see what happens there. That's UNC. Man. And that speaks to the ACC as well. It just continues to be a problem for this league, which Duke got the win, but overall the ACC just. It's a tough situation right now. Clemson looks solid. Duke should be good. Pitt really got rocked. But you're 7-2. Your Pitt, you would have taken 7-2. And you're in the midst of, I've said before on the last show, a 3-game road stretch here. So 1 at Ohio State, lost to Mississippi State. Now they got Virginia Tech, who is not good at all. Pitt's got to make sure they take care of business this weekend on the road in a conference game. But across the board, I mean, we went through this on Wednesday show. I'm not going to do it again, but it is worth noting at least that, Carolina had a home game against a potential 1 or 2 seed on its floor, and it just wasn't up for it. Bama came ready and got it done, and was the rare example on Wednesday night of a team going into a hostile territory, so to speak, and getting it done, because most teams were not able to do that. Okay, real quick. Of the other results I mentioned, Mississippi State destroying Pitt, Maryland, with Derek Queen, who's been outstanding so far as a freshman, having no issue with Ohio State at all. None. Oregon getting a win on the road against USC, Florida remaining undefeated. If there's anything else you want to toss, I'm just wondering, of those that weren't the headlining games, which result to you carries the most weight, significance, that stands out among everything else we saw on Wednesday night?
There were 2 teams that I had unranked on Wednesday morning. There were 3 teams that I had unranked on Wednesday morning that I moved into the top 25 and 1 on Thursday morning. One of them is Oklahoma. I told you they were like in the on-deck circle. They were like in the waiting room just waiting to be called in. So when you get the losses we got last night, Baylor, I dropped out. Ohio State, I dropped out. Pitt, I dropped out. I moved 3 teams out. That made room for Oklahoma. But there were 2 teams that played last night that were unranked on Wednesday morning that I moved into this morning's rankings, and they were Maryland and Mississippi State. Maryland, I took all the way up to number 16. I mean, they smashed. I mean, they Diebler. They Diebler.
They might have ended the concept of Dieblering, by the way.
No, don't you say that.
I mean,
don't you ever say that again.
Okay.
No, don't you ever say that again.
No.
All right. If you want,
I don't know how you ever Diebler again after getting.
If you want to talk like that, you can find another podcast. You better call Sam Vecini and see what he's up to.
Oh, we'll try to get to Sam before the end of the show.
All right. You better call Field of 68 and see if they got a spot for you. And I'm sure
they do. About the idea that Diebler might no longer be a thing.
Don't you ever say that again. All right. You can take that over.
Ohio State's 5-3, by the way.
You can take that to the Field of 68. All right. We're not doing that over here. Don't ever say that again. All right. But they did get smacked around, buddy. It was bad. So I got Ohio State out of the top 25 and 1. Maryland all the way up to number 16. And then Mississippi State. It's just wild to me that my home state is suddenly better than your home state at college basketball. I didn't think this was going to be a thing.
Yeah, I know.
This season or perhaps ever. But here we are. I moved Mississippi State all the way up to number 20. And they jumped. I want to get it exactly, but like they jumped like crazy at KenPom after that win. Mississippi State yesterday morning was number 28 at KenPom. They jumped all the way up to number 12 after
dude.
I know. After doing what they did to Pitt last night down in Starkville. You don't know nothing about Starkville.
I don't. I don't know a damn thing about Starkville.
There's not a whole lot to know, but I'll tell you about it sometimes. I'll tell you about it someday. But I moved them to number 20 in the top 25 and 1. So not to keep hammering home possibly a stupid point, but trust a building.
I've never stopped you before. Go ahead.
Trust a building is a good night to trust buildings, except for the Dean Smith Center. You don't want to trust that one, but the rest of them you could pretty much trust across the board.
All right. I can't believe we're 47 and a half minutes.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we are playing at Virginia's pace.
This is hopefully better than the Cavaliers. We need to do it is, even though it's a Thursday, there's no Friday show. You are getting your final 4-1 a day early. But before we do that, we need one more commercial break. Word from our partners.
Historic rivals with unforgettable seasons meet in a game of honor. The Army-Navy game presented by USAA. December 14th on CBS.
It's time for the Final 4-1 presented by FanDuel Sportsbook. Make every moment more. Are you ready? Oh, you don't even. I should update people on this. I know people are waiting around. They're like,
I don't think we need to do that.
People are like, GP, don't go to game 1 yet. Update us on the standing.
I don't think a single person was thinking that until you.
I feel like everybody.
People listening are like, yeah, I wasn't even really thinking about that.
I think a lot of people are thinking. So the season record right now I am 10-10. I'm 10-10.
You're doing all right. I got it. What am I? 6-14.
You're 8-12.
All right. You know what? I can work with 8-12.
You're 8-12. I am 10-10 after going 3-2 last week, despite forfeiting, just punting on the first game.
You did.
Between Purdue and the SIP. I just said I don't feel comfortable.
You took the auto L.
I took an auto L rather than pick between Purdue as a good percentage Boilermaker human. Rather than pick between Purdue and the SIP, I said, listen, just give me a loss. I'm not going on record picking against either one of these things that I love so much. And I'm still 10-10, 2-game lead over Norlander in the Final 4-1. Hashtag insurmountable. It's an insurmountable lead. It's an insurmountable lead. Game one, Saturday, noon Eastern. It's Providence at Rhode Island. Inside EC Matthews Center.
There we go.
You can watch it on CBS Sports Network. KenPom's got it. Rhode Island, -2.
Rhody, how about that? Trivia time.
Okay.
Rhode Island is 8-0.
Yep.
If you read the court report, you'll know the answer to this.
Okay.
Well, that's fine. When was the last decade? I'm not asking for the year. I'm asking which decade was the last time Rhode Island started 8-0.
Yeah, that was 1930.
Okay, so you're going with 30s.
Yeah, I wouldn't go with the 30s. I like the 30s.
47-48.
Yep, I meant the 40s.
You know what? Let's look up. Hold on. We're going to look up who was Rhode Island's coach in 1947-48. Give me, bring up old sports reference, school history. 47-48.
Jim Barron.
Rhode Island was coached by, they were in the Yankee Conference.
Jim Barron.
No. Frank Keeney.
No.
Frank Keeney? Keeney? Dude, this dude was here forever. He first coached at Rhode Island in 1920, and he lasted all the way. That was his last year. He went out on top. Well, kind of. They finished 17-6, but they started 8-0. And that was the last time Rhode Island started 8-0.
Fell apart, though. I mean, I remember that. See, they fell apart.
Yeah.
They fell apart.
Frank Keeney got Rhode Island into the Yankee Conference. This was an independent program before that happened.
You can keep focusing on that if you
Actually,
want
there was some nonsense going on. They were independent, then they were in the Yankee. They were in the Yankee Conference for 6 seasons. Then they left and were independent for 2 more years, and then they joined the Yankee Conference. What the hell happened? What the hell was going on with the Yankee Conference in Rhode Island in the 1940s?
It's just like Landman with Billy Bob Thornton and Allie Lauder.
It's not, and I haven't seen the show.
Yeah, I mean, they just, they break up and they get back together. It's a lot like what's going on in Landman.
I'm genuinely curious. If there's a Rhode Island scholar listening to the pod, and frankly, there must be dozens. What the hell happened here where you join a conference for 6 seasons, say, we're getting the hell out of here? They went 20-5 and 14-6 and 43, 44 and 44, 45. So they were doing well for themselves. And then they decided, no, we got to double back here. Frank Keeney made sure it happened.
It's the same thing UConn did with the AAC.
It really set the template for it.
Yes.
In a way, but not exactly.
Rhode Island walked so UConn could run.
Yeah, I'm sure they're going to take kindly to that in stores. I tell you what, Archie Miller has himself an actual team here. They've got a chance to be a noisemaker in the A-10. Providence versus Rhode Island is probably the most hostile rivalry in college basketball that doesn't consistently get talked about on that level. Like people, understandably so, talk about Xavier, Cincinnati, in addition to the big time ones that are out there. But these are non-conference opponents that play each other every year and in each other's buildings. And the way it breaks, Rhode gets the benefit of hosting this game this season against the Providence team coming off a good win against BYU, but a 6-3. This one's in, this is some real doubt here. I think you said Rhode Island is favored. I will go with, I will not stand 10 toes on this take. I'm going to be 6 toes max here, but I will go with Providence to go in there and pull out the win in Rhode Island's barn, but should be an awesome, awesome game on Saturday.
Do you realize that KenPom projects Rhode Island to be favored in each of its next 8 games? Have you stopped yourself to consider that Archie Miller's Rams could be the last undefeated team in college basketball this season? Because it's actually possible.
It's possible. I'm going to bet against it.
You're a real hater.
I'm not. I'm just betting against it. There's 9 undefeated teams, and I'm going to say Rhode Island will not be the last one without a scratch.
You are a real hater.
Okay.
This will be game 2 for Bryce Hopkins. We mentioned it yesterday. He was good in game 1, 16 points, 5 rebounds, 4 assists in that victory over BYU. I'm not going to be a hater. I'm not going to come on here and be a hater. I hope to God this Rhode Island team doesn't fall apart like that team from the 40s. It was just so disappointing watching that team just fold like that. It was like reminded me of like what the Lakers are doing right now.
Sure.
I'm taking Rhode Island. I'm going to choose to believe in Rams. Game 2, Saturday, 1:30 p.m. Eastern. It's number 11 Wisconsin at number 5 Marquette inside Travis Diener Forum. You can watch it on Fox. KenPom's got it Marquette -5.
You go first here.
It's difficult. Very difficult situation.
It's not. Pick the game.
My little homie from Memphis is at Marquette. We're inside Fiserv Forum, but I don't trust it like I trust some of these other places. Not because I don't believe in Marquette at home, but because I know they cheat. I know Fiserv Forum cheats. They say they love Cam Jones, but next day they'll be in love with Giannis, or even worse, Chris Middleton. Okay. Still, I can't pick against my little homie from Memphis. Not in a home game on Fox. Give me Marquette -5.
What do we call this game?
Oh God, it's the
What is it?
Bedlam Egg Bowl? What do we call it?
Strike that, reverse it.
The Egg Bowl Bedlam?
Egg Bowl Bedlam. I wanted to call it the Dairy State Duel. I brought this up a year ago that these are a couple of non-conference opponents, rivals in state. They play each other every year. There's no nickname for this matchup. Call it the Dairy State Duel. And Parrish in all his wisdom said, no, that's not it. I got the name for it. It's Egg Bowl Bedlam.
Egg Bowl Bedlam. I forgot all about Egg Bowl Bedlam, but now I'm fired up.
Yeah. How dare you? How dare you? How dare you?
Of all the things I've invented, Egg Bowl Bedlam's up there pretty good, right there with Mickey Mitchell.
You invented Mickey Mitchell?
I invented Mickey Mitchell, yes.
It's the classic Egg Bowl Bedlam presented by the Dairy State Duel, however we want to call this game. I'm going to ride with Marquette. I think they get right after that loss at Iowa State. Wisconsin, this is a tough little pinch point on the schedule. Give me Cam Jones to go off, have an awesome game. Again, this is Saturday, 1:30 Eastern on Fox. I'll take Shaka's guys to win and cover.
Because Marquette last night didn't get good stuff from Cam or David Joplin. Their top two scorers, neither one of them were excellent. That's among the reasons they took a L. Let's see if they can bounce back this weekend. Game 3, Saturday, 10 p.m. Eastern. It's number 4 Kentucky versus number 7 Gonzaga inside Tory Black Arena.
Wow. Been a minute.
We're inside Tory Black Arena.
Okay. Want to explain this to the folks?
Yeah, this game's being played in Seattle. Tory Black was born in Seattle in 1988. She's a 35-year-old mother of 2. Also, AVN Hall of Famer.
Oh.
And the first person to ever.
No! Stop.
She's AVN Hall of Famer. Bro, what are you talking about? A Hall of Famer. She's in more Hall of Fames than you and Pete Rose. I know that. She's also the first person to ever win AVN Female Performer of the Year 2 years in a row. She went back to back. She's a lot like Zach Edey. She's the Zach Edey of her industry, just a little bit shorter and perhaps more open-minded in the bedroom. Gonzaga -6.
There we go. Gonzaga -6. Kentucky just played at Littlejohn, lost the game that turned off the lights. Flying across the country. This is part of the 6-year series between Gonzaga and Kentucky that John Calipari agreed to, saving year 6 at Gonzaga, I believe. And when that happened, you and I both said this dude ain't going to be at Kentucky by the time he's got to go play at the Kennel. This game is not at the Kennel. It's still multiple years away.
I said he didn't even want to go to Seattle. He was like, I'm not going to Seattle. This is crazy.
This game's got really awesome potential to be very, very watchable with the way both of these teams play. Gonzaga, number 2 offense in the country. Kentucky, one of the most, up-tempo teams that we have out there. Really fun opportunity. That's a big line. Give me Kentucky inside the line, GP. I'll say Gonzaga wins, but wins closely. Kentucky keeps it close, takes on a couple of respectable losses. But the Bulldogs have just a really, really solid team. Haven't yet put it together from a three-point shooting standpoint, hitting 35.4%. That's good, not great. But I like them to play well here to give us a really entertaining one. I'll take Mark Few's team to win and get an 8-1, but do it by fewer than 6 points.
I like this Kentucky team. I know they lost. They took their first loss the other night at Clemson, but they played, man. They were in that thing. And I don't mean they played well, but like they were in it. They never really folded. I didn't think it was interesting. Kobe Bryant was not himself in that one. One of the best 3-point shooters in the country for multiple years now. He only took 2 of them at Clemson. He entered the game, just for some context, averaging nearly 6 per game attempts from beyond the arc. Only got 2 at Littlejohn. So it's the lowest number of 3-point attempts he's had in a game since he was 0 for 2 from 3 while at Dayton last season against LaSalle on January 23rd. He had gone 20 straight games taking at least 3 and usually more, and just could not get looks against Clemson in 17 minutes on the court. So we'll see what he does this weekend. I think Gonzaga wins the game, but I'm with you. I'll take Kentucky plus the points. Give me Mark Pope's Wildcats plus the 6. Game 4, Sunday, 6 p.m. Eastern. UCLA at number 12, Oregon, inside Dylan Brooks Arena. You can watch it on a Big Ten network because where else would you watch UCLA and Oregon?
Hey, it's not the Pac-12 network. That's all I got to say.
That's a good point, Norlander. That's a hell of a point you just made. Kim Palm has it, Oregon -2. The Ducks, impressive. They were down I don't know if you saw any of this last night. They were down almost the entire game. They just felt like they were behind all night. And then they ultimately pull away, get a win on the road to remain undefeated. UCLA right now, 7-1. They got a loss to New Mexico, win over Washington, and then nothing else that really matters.
Yeah, I talked with Dana Altman earlier this week about the team's good start there. Jackson Shellstad has been shooting well from 3, but he has I'm looking at this. He's got only 5 turnovers, 6, 7 turnovers the entire season versus 35 assists or something like that. He's actually done a really good job stepping up defensively and growing into his own as a second-year player. He was obviously identified as Oregon's best player heading into the season, but Nate Biddle, keep doing you, and TJ Bamba have also been really good. And then Keyshawn Barthélemy has been the guy to step up and be their 3-point threat overall. UCLA was picked to be a preseason top 3 team in the Big Ten in the eyes of many. It's 7-1. It doesn't have a win of note yet. And here it's got to go on the road, play at Eugene. We'll see. Maybe this is, by the way, you said 6 o'clock tip. We're going to have a late show on Sunday. There's actually a lot of relevant teams playing deep into Sunday, late afternoon or early evening. So if you tune in for the Sunday night show, it's going to be later on, this game included there. I will go Oregon to win and take care of business at home. But I'm glad you put this one on the list because both these teams have been pretty good so far. And it's not like there's been a ton of eyeballs on them. But in their first year in the Big Ten, maybe Oregon and UCLA wind up emerging from the pile as 2 of the 4 or so best teams in that league. But give me Oregon to win and cover.
Yeah, it's such a little number. I'll take Oregon minus the 2 as well. I've moved Oregon. I mentioned earlier, Tennessee is your best option if you're looking for an undefeated team with quality wins and good computer numbers and all that stuff. Oregon's on the list of good options. Also undefeated. They don't have the wins to match other people's great wins, but I've got them 10th in the top 25 and 1 right now. Simply put, you're going to give me a team. I've got 10th in the country at home against a team I have, even if it's against the greatest coach in UCLA history, Mick Cronin. I'll just take the little number. I'll lay it. Give me the Ducks at home.
All right. Other games to know. Purdue at Penn State is tonight, Thursday, 6:30 Eastern, Fox Sports 1. That is a 1-point spread for Ken Palm. Penn State 7-1. Could be a pretty awesome matchup there. And we'll see if Penn State can get a really big win or if Purdue, the presumptive favorite in the Big Ten, can go in and win in that building. I don't think you're trusting the Bryce Jordan Center. I don't think you're adding that to your list of buildings to trust. But Penn State's a good team.
Maybe someday. I don't ever want to make a building give up hope. I want to be encouraging to buildings. So when I look at Bryce Jordan, I can look at Bryce Jordan in the eyes and say, I don't know if I trust you right now, but if you keep working hard, maybe I could trust you someday.
Where are the eyes on the BJC? You said you'd look him in the eyes.
Woo!
Where are the eyes on the Bryce Jordan Center?
Okay, that's a better way to say that. That's definitely a better way to say that.
Okay. Illinois at Northwestern, Friday night, 9 Eastern. Big Ten Network is your most key game to know there. Georgetown also plays at West Virginia on Friday. Saturday, St. Mary's at Utah, Nebraska at Michigan State. Florida State, if you were unaware, is 7-2. It did get beat by LSU earlier this week. NC State could not get the job done at home against Texas. NC State now 5-3. Those 2 teams match up on Saturday. Clemson plays at Miami. Iowa's at Michigan. Random sprinkling of games. We'll see on that. But our N1 is going to be on Sunday. 1 Eastern, ESPN 2. Border War.
Yeah.
Kansas at Missouri. It's going to be going down right there on Marcus Denman Court. What do you know about Marcus Denman?
I know a lot about Marcus
You
Denman.
don't know about Marcus Denman.
I think I've been to a Border War game featuring Marcus Denman.
Well, there you go. Do you actually remember that happening?
No.
Yeah, exactly.
No, but I have been to a Border War game. I don't remember who was involved.
Okay.
Except for Bill Self, certainly.
Yeah, I think it's safe to assume Bill Self was involved. Missouri. It's this game on its home floor. It's 7-1. Opened up the season with a loss at Memphis. Has since won every game, albeit hasn't played a top 100 KenPom team since then. It overcame a deficit at home against Cal on Tuesday to win 98-93. KenPom has this game Kansas -5. Who you got?
Well, I'm going to assume Hunter Dickens is not going to stink for the second straight game. All right? And I'm going to trust my if I have any pride, if I have any belief in myself, I have to think that my preseason number one since April 19th is going to be able to beat Missouri, a team that went winless in the SEC last season. I know
it's not last season.
You don't know that for sure. You can't.
I do know. That was last season. This is this season. I know that for sure.
I'm not certain of that.
I am. This is how you get yourself into a situation like you had with Kansas. It's not last season.
I'm going to trust my preseason number one since April 9th.
All right, which means you're not going to trust Mizzou Arena. That's another building, not on your list.
Literally the worst thing you could have done last season is trust Mizzou Arena. Or the Yum Center. Okay?
Yeah.
And I think it's possible you could have trusted the Yum Center more than you trusted Mizzou Arena.
I actually don't know if that's the case, and I'm not doing the math right now.
It didn't feel right, but I think it might be true. I don't want to say I can't trust Mizzou Arena because I want to encourage arenas. We've talked about this. I would like to encourage arenas, but I can't trust them right now. I would just like them to keep working hard. Maybe I could trust them someday, but I can't trust them right now. That's Bill Self, man. Give me the Jayhawks.
Give me the building. I think Missouri, but this is a rivalry game. Mizzou, best 2-point shooting team in the country right now. Some good interior play. See if Dickinson can affect that. But, Mark Mitchell, been a nice addition for the Tigers here. Hopefully, for Mizzou fans' sake, Dennis Gates is really starting to figure out his rotations and personnel. But intense rivalry game. Missouri has it on its home floor. 5's a little too big for me. What the hell? Why not? Give me the Tigers to get inside that number, and they wind up covering there in a really quality game. I'm just glad they play this again. This is a regional rivalry, but it meant a hell of a lot to a lot of people for a really long time. Kansas obviously has carried the edge significantly over Missouri over the seasons, but the fact that we get this again, I don't take that lightly. I think Mizzou shows up, keeps it competitive, and gets it inside the number. And that's the Final Four and 1.
It's the final. It's not only the Final Four and 1.
Presented by FanDuel. Make every moment more.
Leave it to the pro. Okay? Leave it to the pro.
You mean the guy who keeps bringing up porn stars in the Final Four and 1?
That's a 35-year-old mother of 2.
Okay.
You are married.
You could have picked. I don't know why you didn't go Sydney Sweeney. Frankly, she's from Spokane. I think that's a fumble by you, but whatever. If you were gonna pick someone of the fairer sex to name a building after, seemed like that was going to be your move. But hey, you do you. You seem to be well versed in AVN Hall of Famers, and who am I to stand in your way?
I appreciate Sydney Sweeney. You know that. And if you didn't know that, I'm sure you could assume it. But Sydney Sweeney, to my knowledge, is in 0 Hall of Fames. Tori Black's a Hall of Famer. She went back-to-back like Zach Edey. All right?
Okay.
She's the Zach Edey of her industry, and you're being wildly disrespectful to a 35-year-old mother of 2. You're married to a mother of 2.
I am married to a mother of 2.
When did you decide?
And I think I got 2 minutes to figure out if I'm bringing these kids to school or not.
To stop being disrespectful to mothers of 2. You're married to one. All right? You're married to one. Be a little more respectful. It's a Hall of Famer we're talking about.
Someone in the chat is accurately pointing out that I'm giving you grief over this. This game is not at Spokane Arena. It's in Seattle, which is 5 hours from Spokane.
I said it was in Seattle.
I know that.
It's not in Seattle?
I'm not saying you said otherwise there, but they're not exactly right next to it. It's like It's like Philly to Boston. It's funny. It's funny.
I just think it's time to be a little more respectful to Hall of Famers around here.
I think you should have gone Lane Staley, but I'll just leave it at that. So.
Lane Staley is the saddest story I've
You
ever
should have
heard.
honored him. That's what I'm saying.
Go read about Lane
I'm
Staley.
aware. I'm very aware.
It's just sad. Go Google final picture of Lane Staley.
No, thank you. In fact, folks, you don't need to do that. Listen to Nutshell instead, and you'll get the picture.
Shouts to Devin Downey. Shouts to Chester, South Carolina. Shouts to Terry Teagle. He's a legend. Shouts to Lane Staley. Real legend as well. Go watch that Unplugged. Amazing. Huck Larnell, thank you guys once again for watching and listening to the Eye on College Basketball Podcast. If you're not subscribed, please go subscribe anywhere you subscribe to pods, Apple, Spotify. More of us than there are of them. That should be reflected in the comments. So do that. We'll talk to you again on Sunday. Till then, take care.